A young officer, Gregory Reese, walked into a local supermarket in downtown Oak Ridge, hoping to grab a quick snack after his shift. He wasn't investigating anything, nor had he received any calls. He was just there to pick up a protein bar and a six-pack of soda. His uniform still hung heavily on him, the weight of responsibility, always with him even in these mundane moments. The store, Dempsey's Market, had that familiar late-afternoon feeling, warm, stale air floating over cold tile floors. The kind of air that made it easy for people to linger, their thoughts as heavy as the atmosphere. Many were rushing to make it home in time for dinner. Reese, however, was more in tune with the feeling of being in a public space, especially when his eyes caught a man standing by the dairy aisle. The man was tall, with dark curly hair and wearing a black jacket zipped halfway up. His posture was straight, yet something about the way he stood there, staring at the yogurt section, felt off. He wasn't shopping. He wasn't looking for anything. He was just watching, his eyes darting around, moving from shopper to shopper. Then their gazes met, a brief flicker of acknowledgement, and then the stranger quickly turned back to the yogurt. That was enough for Reese. His instincts told him to approach. This was no time for casual introductions. He walked straight toward the man, his boots clicking louder than usual on the linoleum. Without slowing down, he moved right up beside the dairy case, positioning himself just too close for comfort. "You with store security?" Reese asked, voice flat, cutting through the hum of the store. The man looked up slowly, calm, too calm. "No," he said, simply. Reese didn't like that answer. His suspicion grew. "You've been watching people too long to just be here shopping. Planning to buy anything?" The man raised an eyebrow, not in defiance, but in confusion. He then tucked his phone into his pocket and spoke in a soft tone. "I'm in the middle of something." Reese wasn't backing down. "Middle of what?" "You're not law enforcement. You're not store staff. And I don't like being lied to." Around them, the store's quiet hum shifted as a few heads turned. A woman near the apples stopped stacking them, eyeing the interaction. A teenager at the deli counter whispered to his mother. A manager behind the customer service desk took a few tentative steps forward, but didn't act. Still, the stranger didn't move. He stayed unervingly calm. "Agent Frank West," the man said finally. "FBI." Reese didn't believe him. "Let me see your badge." West didn't flinch. Slowly, carefully, he reached into his jacket and pulled out his badge. He flashed it open. Reese barely looked at it. Anyone can carry a fake badge. West's expression didn't change, but there was something heavy in the silence that followed. He stared right at Reese. "You need to step back. You're interfering with an operation. You're about to mess up a case we've been working for months." Reese scoffed, but something in his gut told him to listen. "Then you should have told someone in local law enforcement there was a guy lurking around the dairy aisle." West's tone hardened. "This is a federal matter, not local." The tension between them was palpable now. Reese could feel eyes on him. A woman across the aisle had her phone pointed in their direction, recording the scene. Someone behind the produce rack whispered. People weren't walking by anymore. They were watching. Judgment hung in the air. "You're not going anywhere without proving who you are," Reese said, his voice hardening. West stood his ground. "You really want to go there?" Before Reese could answer, another voice cut through the tension. A woman appeared, seemingly from nowhere. She was shorter than West, with dark hair pulled into a tight bun. She wore a gray jacket and black jeans. There was no question about her presence. It was immediate and commanding. "You're interrupting a federal operation," she said, addressing Reese directly. "Who are you?" Reese asked, raising an eyebrow, his voice still stern. The woman flashed her badge without hesitation. "Agent Laura Stone. I'm West's partner." Reese's jaw tightened, but he held his ground. "Two FBI agents, huh? No communication with local law enforcement? No visible suspect? You really expect me to believe you're just grocery shopping for justice?" Stone didn't flinch. "We expect you to do your job and show professionalism, officer." Reese shot a glance toward West. "This guy's just standing here. No cart, no list. He looks like he's casing the place." Stone didn't miss a beat. "Are you profiling people now, officer?" Reese glanced around, now noticing the group of people watching, phones out. The tension was no longer subtle. It was palpable. He looked back at West and Stone. If you don't have something signed or someone I can call, I'll detain you right here. West kept his eyes on Reese, still calm. We've been tracking a woman who's been using stolen benefits to launder money across state lines. She was supposed to meet someone here. Now she's probably gone. Reese narrowed his eyes. And you didn't think to notify local authorities? Stone's gaze was unwavering. We don't notify local law enforcement during active surveillance. Reese's mind raced. Something felt off. The woman behind the counter was still watching. A few other customers had stopped, watching him now, too. The sense of control he once had was slipping. You're acting like I'm the problem here. Reese muttered, his shoulders stiff. Weston backed down. You assumed instead of asking. You didn't approach with curiosity. You came looking for a problem. Reese felt the sting of that truth. There was no denying it. He had approached the situation with judgment, not inquiry. And it had cost them. A voice from the back of the store broke the tension again. A manager, a man in his late 50s with graying hair and a red polo shirt, walked up cautiously. Everything okay here? He asked, his gaze bouncing between the two agents and Reese. We're fine, West said, his voice calm. Reese turned to the manager. Do you know these two? Are they legit? The manager shrugged, his palms raised. I've seen her around, but I don't know who they are. He was here earlier, didn't cause any trouble. Reese wasn't satisfied. He turned back to Stone. So, where's your suspect? Stone didn't flinch. Gone. Because of you. Reese opened his mouth to argue, but a voice cut through again from the crowd. A bystander muttered something under their breath. Doesn't he always overreact? Reese spun around, but found no one willing to admit it. The eyes were on him now, silent judgment. He locked eyes with West and Stone. I want your names. Full names. I'll file a report. West didn't look impressed. You're welcome to file it. We'll be doing the same. Reese's pride took a hit. His voice low but firm, he added, if you want to escalate this, I'll need proof of who you are. Stone shook her head. You've already escalated it, officer. Now, we clean up your mess. As the tension in the store began to dissolve, the weight of the situation settled over Officer Reese like a heavy cloud. His pride had taken a significant hit, and the silence that followed seemed to echo louder than the confrontation itself. Despite the public nature of the altercation, the damage was not just personal. It had implications far beyond the grocery store aisle. It was a moment of reflection, a realization that sometimes the hardest part of the job isn't just dealing with criminals, but with your own assumptions, biases, and the consequences of acting before asking. Reese had been on the force long enough to know that instinct sometimes has to take a back seat to procedure. But in that moment, the rush of being in uniform, the belief that his authority should carry weight in every interaction, had clouded his judgment. He assumed he was doing his job, protecting the public, when, in fact, he had become the threat, disrupting an ongoing federal operation that could have brought down a major criminal network. What stung even more was the realization that the criminal, Trina Delmore, was out there somewhere, slipping through his fingers because he failed to exercise patience and proper procedure. Agent West and Stone, though not necessarily the enemies Reese had once thought, had their own responsibilities. They too were professionals trying to do their jobs, working silently behind the scenes to protect the public from a much larger, far-reaching crime. Their composed demeanor, despite the confrontation, had been a lesson in itself. In a world where immediate action is often expected and encouraged, they had shown the power of restraint, the kind of restraint that was often harder to execute than a quick decision to confront. And yet, as Reese had learned the hard way, it was precisely that restraint that often wins the day. As the days passed, Reese's reflection deepened. The local media picked up the footage of the altercation, and it quickly went viral. His actions, now the subject of widespread discussion, painted a portrait of a cop who was too quick to judge, too eager to prove his authority in a situation that didn't require it. Comments flooded in, many supportive, but many others filled with disappointment and frustration. The world had seen it all, an officer rushing in, assuming, and failing, while the real criminals continued their work unimpeded. The video didn't just show a failed confrontation. It showed an opportunity for growth, both for Reese and for law enforcement as a whole. It was a reminder that, No matter how experienced or well-meaning, every officer is still a human being capable of mistakes. The key to growing from those mistakes, however, was accountability. And Reese, though now facing the repercussions of his actions, was beginning to understand the importance of taking responsibility, not just for his actions, but for the ripple effect they caused. Reese's journey didn't end with the grocery store debacle. It was only the beginning of a much larger, deeper reckoning with himself and his role in the system. Whether or not he'd become a better officer remained to be seen, but one thing was certain: he would never look at another situation the same way again. And that, perhaps, was the most powerful lesson of all. Ultimately, it was about understanding the weight of actions, where judgment must pair with understanding and silence holds power.